Hi guys, in this video I wanted to cover some of the proposed new EK passives from the CipSoft survey around the skill wheel. So those of you who don't know, when the skill wheel was first announced some months ago, CipSoft prepared a survey where they asked you how likely you would be to use certain passives. And I thought I would take this time to rank them, what my thoughts are about them. And then at the end I also will have a little bit of fun and give some examples of new EK passives on the skill wheel that I think could be quite interesting. So let's get started. Number 5, in my opinion, by far the worst proposed passive that CipSoft suggested. And this was Annihilation. So this is the strong, brutal strike, which currently has a cooldown of 30 seconds and has a 4-second cooldown, global cooldown after you use it. So this has it's similar to Ultimate Explosion of the mages, right? So you use it and then you have a 4-second cooldown. So this is a spell we're talking about here. And the proposed change is to lower the cooldown by 6 seconds from 30 to 24 seconds and damage increase of 6%. And I have to say, I think this is totally useless. Nobody would ever use this. Damage increase of 6%. I mean, if you're giving yourself a 4-second global cooldown, not really that useful. And the lowered cooldown from 30 seconds to 24 seconds, meaningless. Honestly, I was trying to think of any use where this would be good. Now, I'm not a PvP player, so I don't know how true this is, but I could imagine that maybe some EKs use this spell to finish off a kill, in which case this 6% extra damage increase might be useful in a PvP scenario. Now, this is a big might. I don't PvP. I don't know whether this is a realistic scenario. And outside of this, I see no uses for this skill at all. So I'm hoping that CipSoft will not implement it as is and maybe rework it a little bit more. Number 4, I have put in charge, increase of speed boost to 110% and increase of duration by 2 seconds. So currently, this is Utani Tempo Hor, I believe the spell. And currently it gives you an increase of speed boost by 90% for 5 seconds. So this is basically a quality of life update, makes it easier to run, far away. It's pretty good. To me, this is a nice quality of life update. I mean, if this was just given to me, I would happily take it. Whether I will actually pick up this passive in the skill wheel remains to be seen, depending on, how the pathing is. We'll have to see until the whole skill wheel is released. But it's okay. It's fine. It's nothing special. It's useful. Number 3, I put the passive Chivalrous Challenge, mana cost reduction of 5% and chain up to 4 creatures. So the mana cost reduction is pretty meaningless because it's not a heavy mana intensive spell anyway. But the quality of life of chaining up to 4 creatures, I think, is pretty big. It's nothing major. The 3 creatures, if you aim it correctly, is pretty good anyway. With the 2-second cooldown, you can usually get all of the creatures very quickly. But I think it's nice. I would like to have this. If this isn't on some really far out node in the skill wheel, I would try to take this because it is pretty nice for hunting spots where there are ranged creatures. Not much more to say to this. Again, it's not an amazing one. It's just pretty nice. I rank it a little bit higher than the movement speed one, which I ranked at number 4. At number 2, we have Fierce Berserk, which is mana cost reduction of 5%, which is better than the mana cost reduction of 5% on the Chivalrous Challenge, because Exori Grant actually takes up a fair amount of mana, so the 5% is actually a higher value. But nothing major. However, it gives you a damage increase of 5%, which, is nothing huge, but it's nice, right? Everybody uses this spell in their rotation. This is the key element of the EK rotation. It's one of usually 3 spells that you use, which probably makes up about 50% of your damage. The other 2 spells probably make up the other 50%. So I would say this is likely to be an overall 2.5% damage increase, which is pretty good, right? 2.5% is about half the value that a crit imbuement gives you. So I would evaluate this skill point to be about half the value of a crit imbuement, which to me is pretty huge. If this is just 1 point on a skill wheel, it's pretty damn good, right? So I like this one. I would definitely try to get this one if it's implemented as is. And here we have number one, the one I'm most excited about, is Ground Shaker. Damage increase of 5%, which is good. It deals less damage than the Fierce Berserk in general, unless you're hitting a lot of mobs. It's still nice to get extra 5%, but the big thing for me here, and a huge quality of life, is the cooldown lowered by 2 seconds. Now, as it is, an EK normally has a spell rotation of 3 spells, because this is centered around the Fierce Berserk Exile Ground, which has a 6-second cooldown, so you normally want to fill in, your rotation, you see it mentally as a 6-second rotation. However, Ground Shaker has a cooldown of 8 seconds, which makes it quite awkward to fit it in, and you have to be really changing your rotation between Ground Shaker, between Exori Min, sometimes using Exori, Ground, Exori. It adds complication for sure. So with this passive, if you're boxing, then suddenly your rotation becomes very easy. It's Exori Ground, Exori Mass. Repeat. Super easy. I really like these sort of quality of life changes, so I would be very interested in picking this one up. Yeah, and that's my ranking. Those are the 5 passives that CipSoft proposed in the survey. This is how I would rank them. I would summarize in general that I'm a little bit underwhelmed because when I looked at the proposed changes to the other vocations, they all had quite interesting mechanics. For example, the Druid had the Heal Friend spell heal the Druid itself for 25%, which, is like a new mechanic, right? Something brand new. Here, we kind of just looking at damage increases, cooldown reductions, mana reductions, it's fine. It's pretty basic though, right? It's not too exciting. Anyway, I would be super happy with point number 1 on Ground Shaker here, just because of this cooldown reduction. So that's that. Now I'm just going to go to the next slide, where there's some of my ideas which I thought would be pretty interesting for the skill wheel. I'm guessing the skill wheel will be revealed within the next week or two, so hopefully some of these make it on there. Probably not all of them though. So yeah, first idea, we could improve recovery. So this is, I don't even remember the spell, how you call the spell. Never mind, the spell which every 4 seconds regenerates 20 or 40 health. You've got the strong recovery and normal recovery. For example, there could be a passive point to make this one really busted, right? Instead of 40 health regeneration, make it 100 health regeneration every 2 or 4 seconds. Depends on the values, of course, but that could be something interesting to give you a little bit of extra healing. Currently, I would say strong recovery is pretty useless. I mean, it's worthwhile with regards to its cost, right? It's still worth the mana cost, but it's not going to save you in a full box, if we're being honest. It's just a little bit of extra passive healing. Not many people use it. I forget about it myself as well. If they really bumped it up 2 times, 3 times, could be interesting. Number 2, they could maybe make the familiars somehow more interesting or stronger. This would apply to all the vocations, of course, but just a thought. Maybe, I don't know how they would do it, but maybe some extra damage. Maybe for EK, for example, an EK specific familiar change would be for the familiar not to attract aggro, right? EKs never use familiars when hunting solo because they attract aggro, and then you can't box, monsters run away from you to go into familiar, you lose experience per hour when you use the familiar, right? You only use familiar maybe for solo bosses, because otherwise it's useless. So maybe a cool change would be to make the familiar not attract aggro. Now this would also have downsides, because if you ever get trapped in a box and you summon the familiar to grab some aggro, you would lose this option, right? So this is something to think about anyway. Some quality of life. My major gripe when it comes to EK is the fact that Exeter and Utito share a cooldown, and this, I hate this, I really hate this. They share the same spell group, and I would love it if they didn't share cooldown, so I could go Exeter and Utito on the same turn. It would really make my life, I would love that quality of life. I doubt that they will implement this, if I'm being super honest, but just something I would really like. For example, they might have a large Exeteres as a quality of life. Maybe this will be one of the skill points. Exori mass sized Exeteres. That would be awesome. People would absolutely love that. So I'd be super happy with that as well. Point number 4, Exori Min increased range. Yeah, perhaps they might consider increasing the Exori Min to also attack the 2 monsters on the side, right? If they go ahead and implement the Ground Shaker change that I mentioned on the previous slide and lower its cooldown to 6 seconds, suddenly Exori Min's not going to be that useful, because most people will use Exori Mass in the rotation. But if maybe there's a point which increases Exori Min range from 5 squares to 3 squares, suddenly Exori Min is again better than Exori Mass, right? Who knows? This is just an idea. They could do something like higher Exuramed eco healing, you know, just plus 10%, plus 20% extra healing would be great. Just an idea. They could also increase the Blood Rage duration, which I would also like. This sort of ties in with my point about Utito and etc. not sharing cooldown. A longer Blood Rage duration would mean that I would have fewer of these clashes of etc. Utito, which would be great for me because I really hate it when I have to challenge monsters. And because of that, I don't have a Blood Rage active, and it happens a reasonable amount of time, unfortunately. So yeah, these are just a few things I came up with in about 5 minutes. I'm sure there's loads and loads of different cool ones that you guys can think of. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, I guess let's wait and see what CipSoft came up with, and as soon as that's released, I'm definitely going to be reviewing it and sharing my thoughts on this skill wheel because I'm super excited about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about the skill wheel, and see you next time.